Hello, everyone. Welcome back for some more Let's Read. Higurashi, we are on chapter 10, the day of the Watanagashi. This is the day when everything's going to change in more ways than one, because I've been kind of doing like one video per chapter, but on recommendation of some really nice early member watchers, which again, if you're ever curious, you can get a membership for my channel. Watch them as soon as literally as soon as the video is like, when it's edited, it goes up, right? We got some early commenters who basically said, look, the next two chapters are very long, longer than your average, to a point where you probably want to break them up into two. And so, you know what? I'll do that. Not just because of the fact that more videos equals, it's a more stable upload schedule, but also I frequently need to emotionally reset to continue. Anyways, it's Sunday. The fireworks I heard before noon were probably to announce the opening of the festival. It was a scary load. And the weather certainly wasn't festival weather. It was cloudy. The television forecast was calling for possible downpours starting this evening and lasting until around midnight. But as long as it wasn't raining at that moment, the festival would go on. This song is orchestral. The festival had to open, or it wouldn't begin. The Furude Shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up, all in the auspicious colors of white and red. The sound of electric motors at the stalls, the voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them, smiling. Today was the festival of Watanagashi. Was everyone already partaking in the festivities? What about Satoko? Had she forgotten her days of suffering just for a few moments, while smiling that brilliant smile she hadn't in so long? This would probably be the longest day of my life. It would be a day I would remember vividly for as long as I lived. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounged about during the early afternoon. We may have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't be helped but being surprised by the deviation from how I usually spend my time. Glancing around my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes just a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in these knots. When I decided to murder Satoko's uncle, I was in such a state of excitement I almost went crazy. When I was planning out the act of a murder, which went directly against all the morals fostered in me thus far, I was in such a state of calm, I almost thought I had lost my emotions. And then, yesterday, when I learned Satoshi had made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feelings I had then. And now, entering today, right now, I lacked all the emotions I'd possessed until now. To make a simple analogy, it was the kind of feeling you might get right after you wake up, when you're still half asleep and you don't really feel anything very clearly. I had no anger towards the man for the violence he'd committed against Satoko, nor did I feel any sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent towards my friends, who had just waited and watched, never reaching out to her with any help, and no nervousness or fear towards the day that had finally come. Yes, right now, you could say I was in the best possible condition for carrying out a murder. When it came down to it, I would probably let my violent emotions take control. But right up until that moment, I would be like an insect. I would slowly, surely, silently move towards my objective. And then, when I had my prey, I'd attack like a bullet. There was no emotion in that. Just the creeping mindset insects possessed. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I would kill Satoko's uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little thinking like that, thinking like an insect. Tug. I tightened my laces one more time and walked out the door. I brought the shovel out of the front storeroom. I would need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel was a convenient one made for camping. If it twisted like so and split into 3, I could easily hide it in my bag. Twisted the shovel and dismantled it. And even though I'd done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason. Like I was suddenly clumsy now. I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self deep within me was hesitant. I knew the act of dismantling the shovel was the first step I'd take to becoming a murderer. The last twist was conspicuously difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. The area around Satoko's house was outside my circle of activity. Even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. I definitely want to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. With that in mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. I didn't mind going the long way around. With how long the stay could be, I could never be too careful after all. There's definitely the music is evoking a state of Zen calmness, right? This is the sound of when you get into the zone in Mario Kart, right? Where everything else just fades away and you get that zone, right? The only difference is there's a bit of a scary undertone to it, unlike when you're playing Mario Kart and you're not, killing someone. They're not exactly equivalent crimes. Still, I was fortunate enough to not run across anybody on my way to the planned site of the crime. I wasn't superstitious at this point, but it was a good omen. The place I would dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place as before since there were no signs to guide me, but I arrived there smoothly, and as expected. I took another look around. Not even a hint of human presence. The air was a little bit damp, but it was comfortable in the cool shade of the trees. I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag and began skillfully putting it together. Then, I stuck the tip of the shovel into a soft-looking patch of ground and pushed on it with my foot. I gotta say, as a kid, I saw shovels in all sorts of cartoons and stuff, and it always looked so easy. And then I remember the first time my dad handed me a shovel and said, "All right, you know how to use this, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen it on I've seen it on cartoons and stuff, right? I should know how to handle a shovel." And then I learned, oh my god, no, it's absolutely not as easy as the cartoons make it out to be. Shoveling is hard. You have to really, really, really press in, right, with all your weight. It's just one of those things that until you do it, you don't realize how hard it actually is to kind of get started. The shovel would split the earth if I put some strength into that foot. The act of doing so seemed awfully like the point of no return, and it made me hesitate. I was just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Let's do a countdown. Get it done on the count of 3, okay? All right. 1, 2... I couldn't do it on the countdown, and despite it just being sticking the shovel into the ground, I had to count down 5 or 6 times. Damn it, I'm just digging a hole. This is pathetic. As I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unpleasant, and then split came the sharp sound. It was only soft at the beginning. Roots and stones quickly got in the way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a hole big enough for a person. No decent person would ever come here anyway. Maybe it'd be enough to cover him up with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on it with my teeth and dug even harder. I've dug enough now. I could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I would go down into the hole, grow disappointed at how shallow it was, and return to digging. The thin layer of sweat on my brow eventually formed into droplets and fell to the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin and it felt disgusting. The things I couldn't stand the most were the mosquitoes. Maybe they were attracted by the scent of my sweat. The white and black striped mosquitoes would cling to me whenever I let my guard down. It was hot, it was disgusting, I was sticky, I was itchy. All those uncomfortable feelings surged through me in waves.
くそったれ。だからなんだってんだよ。やめて帰れってのか？え？
I hadn't yelled at anyone. It was me talking to myself, me telling myself something. How was I feeling this way and digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging this hole at all? Wait, in the first place, who ordered me to dig? When I thought it over, well, maybe ever since grade school or even before that, my whole life had only been doing what other people told me to. I didn't mean it was somehow constrained, living life just based on the commands of others, and I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road in life. Metaphorically speaking, well, yes, it was like a road. I'd never been particularly physically fit. I didn't hit puberty very early, and if all my classmates and I got in line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My scores in jump rope competitions and marathons were the very picture of average, and it wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock, paper, scissors contest to see which would get me. During those kindergarten and grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew and how fit they were. Looking back on it now, it was really uncomfortable for me. Oh god, this is too real. Oh god, this is too real. The thing that turned all that around was just a few words from my mother.
ケイチ、あなた塾に入る気はない？学校の勉強がわかるようになって楽しくなるわよ。
I'm sorry. Are you implying cram school is fun? The very first test I took at cram school was kind of like a game. It was a lot of fun, never mind. I guess you're kind of a nerd. It wasn't like the tests with the same exact problems dozens of times in a row. Oh, never mind. This sounds awesome. Every question had a picture to it, almost like one of those puzzle books that came with manga magazines. I don't think they had those here. If my studies at school had been like this, well, it would have been way more fun. Never mind, this sounds awesome. Sounds like Reader Rabbit or something. Hell yeah. Several days later, I went to the cram school again with my mother and the enrollment paperwork. Mom and the person at the cram school, wait, what? Mom and the person at the cram school had a really long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said, but I clearly remember one point. Mom had made a loud groan, surprised at something. Huh?
61って平均点が61点ですか？
Oh. That's like pretty bad by North America standards, which is like abysmal by Japan standards.
いえ、違いますよ、お母さん。全国展開する当塾での平均偏差値が61です。
Hey, wait, what?
簡易式の知能検査でも非凡な数字が出ています。
Wait, no, wait, okay, wait. The deviation from the mean. Okay, the mean is the average, right? So the deviation is 61. Whoa, wait. Like, you're talking positive, right?
まず申し上げて、前原圭一君は大変に頭がいい。
Oh god, no, we're gifted. Oh, no wonder he's depressed. We're a gifted kid.
圭一が？でも学校では大した成績じゃありませんし。
Oh, that he doesn't have good grades because he's bored at school, that's what happens with a lot of smart kids, right? Oh my god, well, I mean, especially if we were in a in like this type as well, no, but this is not the school from, right? Like this is meant to be back when he was not in the small town. That's even interesting in its own way.
通信簿も2、3、4が適当に並ぶ平均的なもので。
Huh.
何かの間違いではありませんか？
いくつかの知能テストとも重ねましたが、その結果、興味深いことが分かりました。前原君は意味を持たない問題に非常に弱いのです。
Oh god, so he's me. I cannot stand questions that have no meaning. Like, okay, if you were to give me a math question that was like set in reality, right? There's a real reason why you're doing it. I could probably figure it out because my answer would make sense for what's going on, right? If there was a thing about like, if I were to use the quadratic formula to freaking get how many watermelons are here, and the answer was like 7, I'd be like, okay, 7 watermelons makes sense. So that makes, but if you get like 42 million, then yeah, that wouldn't make sense, right? Or worse, you just get a question where it's just numbers, right? Like, I don't know, what are we going with? I kind of get that because I do think questions that literally have no basis, and that's why I like English. Because English, you go off the basis of reality, social, you go off the basis of history and, all that stuff. But like math, man, there's no point. Like, I at least how I feel. Again, I don't teach math. I will never teach math.
無味乾燥で自身の生活に結びつかない内容の問題に興味が持てないのです。
No, I get it.
2+3 は分からなくても、リンゴが2個あって3個増やしたら何個にという形なら理解できる。
On the other hand, like, okay, so on the other hand though, it is important to be able to think in the abstract, because when you can think in the abstract, that also implies like empathy, to be able to understand something that you don't necessarily grasp, like it's important to be able to do, right? But that's why you should, when making a test, definitely, test for both abstract and concrete thinking. And, a good teacher would base the level of education off of not both of them, but whichever one the student actually does better, right? That is proper pedagogical, test making. Hi, I'm a vice principal, by the way.
その通りです。例えば、正六面体の展開図を書けと言われて混乱する圭一くんも、サイコロを切り開いたらどんな形になるというふうに聞けば、見事に答えられるのです。
Then the person from the cram school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper with questions about construction. Construction questions were unusual, so they were really cool, weren't they?
正二十面体の展開図を書けという問題です。
Icosahedron. I'm sorry. What grade is he in for you to draw an unfolded regular icosa? Like, I don't. How the frick do you do that?
この問題を二十面体のサイコロを作るにはどんな風に厚紙を切ればいい?
See, but like, here's the thing. Legitimately, that second question is so much easier for me to picture.
と聞き直したら、圭一くんはさも簡単そうにこれを書いてみせました。
I don't even know how you would draw a 20-sided die.
これは平凡なことではありません。
Yeah, that's surprising.
ケイチ、あなたどこかの本の雑誌の付録か何かで二十面体のサイコロを作ったことがあったの?
Dice only went from 1 to 6. I'd never considered before this test that there were dice with more than 6 sides. Oh my god, dude. Let me introduce you to Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to be seeing dice you never thought were physically possible. I saw a D1000. So it was fun to imagine what kind of shape a die that went up to 20 would have. If I had a die like that, I could win at 6 and ladders against anyone. So I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered the cram school. There were only 4 students in the class they put me in, which was called Select. It was the highest class, and some of my classmates were in lower classes. And when I remembered how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and the 50-meter sprint, I felt happiness well up within me for the first time. Even if I wasn't as good as even if I wasn't as good at them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised, the more the teachers at school suddenly started pampering me, and it felt good. My parents were satisfied too, and I enjoyed seeing them satisfied. The more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. That did happen, didn't it? I grinned dryly in self-deprecation. Because, well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting very long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I gradually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind what I was learning in cram school, and eventually stopped respecting the teachers given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And, well, I was a disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew, and the ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in that state of ecstasy forever. I mean, the big problem with any sort of gifted student is, and I am speaking from the heart here, if you start off smart and then you get lazy, and you will keep being lazy and not studying and just gliding through until you hit a wall, and then because you've never experienced a wall before, you shut down. You have no clue what to do, right? When you finally reach that point where you're like, for me, it was grade 12 math. I was able to go all the way up to grade 12 math, never studying. I never had to because I sucked at math, but I was enough to do decent at it, right? And in the end, I didn't know how to study. So when I got to the finals, my grade came out and it was poor, right? I didn't fail, but it was poor. And I sort of realized I don't know how to study. I don't know how to do anything, right? Now, I had a base to work off of. My mother's an educator, and she basically said, look, she told me right out, you finally hit a wall. You've glided through all of school up to the very end of it, and because you're going to go to university after, you need to know what to do. And so, like, she actually really, really pushed me we got a tutor. She really pushed me to study. Like, she did a good job in actually making me to understand. The problem is, so many people don't have that push, you know? And when that happens, they start to, many of them just stop, right? That's how you get the gifted student who they thought would be the greatest achiever, not going to university, not getting a degree, or they're able to finish high school, and then when they get to university or college or whatever, and then they can't, right? And I think it's a sad thing when, someone who, they naturally are at like an 80%, and then when they're hit with something that stops them from achieving that 80, to not have a base to help them learn the skills to get further up. I think that's really sad, but that is the reality for so many people. Mind you, Keiichi's situation's a bit different. I'm just kind of rambling now because this is kind of hitting a little close to home, which is not great on the chapter where we murder someone, but stranger things have happened. I would do as I was told, and I'd go above and beyond their expectations, and then they'd praise me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated itself like the wheels on a bike. I thought moving forward like that was how life worked, like a bicycle. When I moved to Hinamizawa, I realized just how inadequate it was. Some things happened, and we started saying how moving and getting a nice change in atmosphere would be nice. And then my father, he had a place that he liked, that he'd gone to a few times to draw on the nature. He started saying that he wanted to bring his atelier there. With me in blank amazement, I decided to move to Hinamizawa. And after that, I met them, didn't I? Oh, we're doing a flashback to the actual first day. The first day after transferring here. I went to the classroom with the teacher. I thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me in there, so I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the room. Clatter. The thrilling, powerful way I opened that door was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. And then, within seconds, that determination took a hard counter to the face. There was a bucket of water or something above you, isn't there? No, blackboard eraser fell on me. Plus, there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Oh, come on. Satoko was already beating me up from the first day I transferred? That frightened me. I was bewildered. And the class was surprised too. I wasn't just surprised that the students in the class were all in different grades and were different genders. Okay, whoa, you were at a very different school then. It was because the room felt completely different from the schools I knew. And as I spent more time with them, my surprise continued to grow. This fresh sense of surprise had never left my life even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. I've never had a single boring day since coming here. The days were lively, spent with the other club members. We played Old Maid with cards with scratches on the back to cheat. We let our passions go wild during our games. We went all out as regular participants in tournaments at the toy store in town and many, many more things. Recently, during those times, there was the bento competition. It was that's when I saw an unexpected side to Satoko. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her 2 nights. It was such a sweet, gentle time, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized that Satoko was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was, out of her heart, always waiting for her Nini to come home. And I vowed to become her Nini. Satoko may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. But though it might have seemed like she was taking the lead, it was actually her way of depending upon another person. Even if Satoshi and Satoko's lives as siblings were confined by their uncle and his wife, they were still warm, sunny days. When did those sunny days go all wrong? What mistake was made? Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, and I've told myself that so many times, but I did anyway. Heiichi, isn't that why you chose your own path? To take back that life? Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You don't desire anyone's praise for this. You thought it all through yourself. You'll carve it out yourself. And you'll do it now. This wasn't a path I could see very far down, not like the road parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark and utterly distressing, one for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But that disheartening path would keep on going forever. It was an unlimited path, and there was nowhere I couldn't travel. The path of murder! Kind of path only available to those able to imagine where they wanted to go. I gotta say, this game is really showing the positives to murder, right? It's really making it seem like something that, dang, your life could be great if you just kill someone. In Minecraft, I gotta say that for YouTube sometimes. Don't be ashamed at breaking from the brightly lit paved road. In fact, feel proud. Okay, wait, I'm sorry. In my brain, I'm reading all this and how it's really praising how great this is, and just the name Luigi appeared in my brain, and I'm like, man, is this what was going through his head? Because dang, I mean, he's still out there. He's not having issues, you know? Oh, okay, I guess going to court is issues, but... In fact, feel proud that you found your very own path to walk, Luigi. And I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I would go back to that bright road. Then I'd spend those average sunny days at my leisure. Crush. When I next realized it, the hole, well, had grown so deep I couldn't believe it. Did I dig all this myself? Honestly, this is so real with how work goes. When you start to get bored and your brain wanders, but then you look and you're like, oh shoot, I did so much.
これだけ掘れば十分じゃないか。
I put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I would drag the body here, throw it in the hole, and cover it up with dirt. Even if it took me time to camouflage it by putting plants on top, it would all go much easier than digging this hole had. Glanced at my watch. It was almost oh my god, it's been hours. It was almost evening. I hadn't realized it. I may not have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have taken quite a lot of time. I took a sleet on a sanded rock nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got a little darker, I'd go get the metal bat I hid in the schoolyard. Then I'd make the call to lure him out. And then I'd do it. The number of things I needed to do to reach that moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I still felt that. A contradiction. At every step in this process, I had a few chances to hesitate, to turn back, to let myself lose my nerve. Having to endure those million temptations and wait for when the time was right was an indescribably slow and painful torture. I had thought myself acting all weak, and because of that, I had thought myself acting. Oh, I had thought myself acting all weak because of that, but I stopped midway through. This was okay. It was fine. I could detest the abnormal act of homicide as much as I wanted, and it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cutthroat killer after today. I would pass through this strange day and go back to the world I was in before. If I fell to the level of a psychopath who thought nothing of killing, well, I wouldn't be able to get back to my old life. So, this was fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed at hesitating to kill, because I was human. It was so funny to me that I'd be the bearer of Oyashiro-sama's curse at the same time I was aware I was human. I exhaled lightly, then stood. I concealed my presence and sharpened my senses in all directions to sense for anyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time, I would walk my own path. A path no one had forced me to
行くぞ
walk.
前原圭一
The cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot, and their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I would be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every last ounce of strength they had. Dang, the Higurashi, when they are crying, is now. The sky was far above. In not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near and the sky would be tinted with dusk. By that time, the Higurashi would let me hear their okay, wait, no. Again, the fact that Higurashi are different from the cicadas is very confusing. Because right now they're evening cicadas, not to be confused with Higurashi, which are an evening type of cicada. When that happened, would everything be over with? Would everything have ended? I said something along those lines when I left Satoko's fate up to the public agency. But this time was different. I would do it. I would carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end. That was scary. That was scary. Yes. Oh my god, there it is! There it is! It's happening. It's happening. Oh my god, in that slow transition, it gave me time to point when the Higurashi cried. Oh my god, they made you wait for that. That was sick, actually. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Oh my god, title drop. Now, can you imagine if like an anime OP played right now? That'd be amazing, but also that might be the longest time it would ever be for an anime OP drop, you know? I need a sip of my tea. Gosh dang. Okay. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. Okay, hold up. So, this is actually something that I've kind of experienced a few times. There's been some days that I've woken up and I feel like I can see the rims of my glasses. Like the world is small and enclosed and tight around me. But there's other days I wake up and I can see my glass frames, but I see the wide world through them. And I really do feel like it's that concept of like your eyes can see the world clearly. Because like some days I wake up and I just feel like the world is so huge. And it's a weird feeling, and I've definitely noticed it. And I think I now understand this idea of like my eyes could see clearly. I get that, yeah. It's like, does the world feel big or small in a moment, you know? At least personally speaking, that's kind of what I felt. I could also potentially have mental stuff going on. It's possible. It happens, you know. I don't know. It's not easy to get an English diagnosis in China. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy construction machine I'd hidden the metal bat behind. If it's gone, like, what do we do? Is it just over? Oh God. The way the music stopped there actually gave me a chill. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone else had found the bat and hidden it somewhere as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there, then sensation of chilled metal. Well, it was still here where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He waited here patiently for me.
待たせたな、サトシ。いよいよだが、覚悟はいいか？
Through the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know? I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself.
上等だぜ、サトシ。目に物を見せてやろうぜ。
All right, Sans. So, can you imagine the twist? No, Sans is not Ness. He's actually Keiichi Maibara. That would explain a lot. Satoshi's bat got lighter and lighter, and it fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally. It was like it's literally like an extension of my arm attached, right? Like it's just a part of it that I can't really deal with. Like it's stuck on me. Help, it's stuck. I can't stop it. It's stuck on me, right? It's an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Normal thing dudes do. Next, I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a... Hold up. Okay, well, no, it's the same one. Show a bad time. Bad time? Sorry, I'm just thinking of Sans, Keiichi. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. Shoot. There's no public phone booths here? Wasn't this at phone booth time? My house and Satoko's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Couldn't I use the school phone? But as I thought, the room was locked and I couldn't get in. Are you gonna break in? Shit. So naive. Should have at least figured this part out. I couldn't call him. And just for that was today all over? I'm sorry, Satoshi. And just as I cursed my own naivete, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man. The one from the Forest Service field office. Why? Wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, the forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. The best possible coincidence. And it had to be Satoshi who saved me. The metal bat, through just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. I felt the man heading into the forest office's storehouse, which was so far in the back students weren't allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the door opened slowly as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went in. I tiptoed along silently and stealthily and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with a phone. I'm getting like goosebumps. I'm like, not goosebumps, but I'm getting butterflies in my stomach. Like I'm actually getting like nervous. As oh my god, that curry must be rotten. It's rotten. I held my breath in the teacher's lounge. I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then the back door clattered shut and was locked. I sure hope it can open on our side. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard. and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out of the school gate. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure the silence was the real deal, and then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Satoko's phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Satoko had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. I touched the dial with my fingers and thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night, now that I have my finger on the dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. This is me when I had to phone to order pizza. Like, I would literally have to rehearse what to say when ordering pizza, and then they'd say something different, and I'd be like, it's over, I want to die. When they created online pizza ordering where you just put in the information and it goes, I felt like a god. Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight and not sound suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. That's normally the sound of us getting a call, but the call sound. Would Satoko's uncle pick up? Alright, I guess you call and then it does ring too. Now, of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Satoko if he didn't whirled around in a vortex. Oh God. It was the voice of a grumpy man, like he had just woken up. He picked up. Say your name so I know you're Hojo, you asshole. It'd be terrible if I got it wrong. I just made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go.
こちらは下根市沖宮警察です。北条さんのお宅ですか?
I was changing my voice. Not a lot, but I guess. But did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police?
はい、北条ですけど。
今、お宅のお嬢さんの北条聡子さんをこちらで保護しています。
え、聡子があいつ何かやらかしおりましたか?
He fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words.
詳しい事情はこちらにいらしてからご説明します。
I just realized something. Did they say he has a motorcycle? What if he just goes past us where we want to murder him? Why would he stop on the trail? Uh-oh.
すぐにこちらへ来ていただくことはできますか?
今ですか? 風呂に入っちゃったからあんまし表に出たかないんですがね。
What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath?
はい、今すぐです。
すぐ。貞子のやつ何をしちゃったんですか?
詳しい話はこちらでいたします。ではお待ちしていますのでよろしくお願いします。
ちょっと俺警察署がどこかわかんないんだけど、どこよ場所?
Uh-oh. You moron, what the hell? Naokonomi a police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? Greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke.
消防署の隣でしたっけ? 遠いな.
Oh, thank goodness he remembered on his own for me. I didn't care where the police station was, so long as he left his house to get
で
there.
はお待ちしていますので。
俺警察行ったら誰んとこ訪ねればいいんよ?
First name, Imda. Last name, murderer.
あんた名前は?
On top of that, he wanted to know my name? Just leave your goddamn house already.
前橋と申します。
Maibashi.
では失礼します。
That was close. Almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. Not that it's like, I mean, no, in this village, Maibara is a known name. Managed to change the last syllable of it, but I put the receiver down like I was running away. Well, yeah, because you got to get out of here now. My fingers were trembling and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had finally been put into motion. I'm again, like right now, my stomach has intense butterflies. That's my favorite part of like visual novels like this. My body reacts to it. Like I physically feel these things. I am extremely empathetic, for better or for worse, but boy, does it make these experiences just, they hit so much harder. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. Oh, thank God. I couldn't lock it again after I left. That's fine. That's not a huge deal. Just say someone left it open. Who cares? I shouldn't say this, I'm a teacher. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He'd learned there was no one at the station named Maibashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukatas. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But I didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area might not have known much about me. That didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible, to control my breathing, and to ambush the man. I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up Satoshi back, which I left hidden in the shade. And I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gotten here. Or maybe he went right out after the phone call and passed by here already. I couldn't figure out which it was and was set upon by an indescribable impatience. Calm down, Kichi Maibara. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact that he'd die. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? Figured it'd be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, then he wouldn't be able to help falling. Then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he went just a little farther, he'd cross into that thicket and appear in front of me. Take a moment to make sure it was him. And then when I had, I'd put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. Few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Satoko's uncle's bike without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Satoko's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at its characteristics again. Its color, shape, and most of all, the man's clothes and face. Okay, so he's not wearing like a full helmet. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. Satoko, now, your Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer, closer. The bike came closer. Whoops, did that turn on? There we go. Let's go. Satoshi. Sorry, what? Was that wait. Was that? That doesn't sound like... Was that literally Satoshi talking to us through the bat? Whoosh! I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning it stopped. Her uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. Now was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie. I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and I let my hands dangle my sides. Wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now, Keiichi Maibara? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape? Scrape? I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, and then another, towards Satoko's uncle. One step at a time. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes, at this moment, this guy had lost permission to live. I had just rescinded it. So he mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Satoko's misfortune continued, then it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel a cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked.
痛え
Can you imagine if, we do this and, just tackling him kills him? That's all it took for it to hurt. Satoko's heart hurt much more. And now, you're going to feel that. And with your life, I'll make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute, execute, execute. Utterly calm, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot. At least during the first moment, I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless. And if he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was a defensive reaction all humans made like machines. He used both his hands to cover his head, so he couldn't pick himself up off the heap he was in on the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. If he covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. By just delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I'd retained my overwhelming advantage. I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself off the dirt and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he'd made after seeing my face and deciding whether to fight me. Right now, he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from the more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but wasn't all that unlucky, and the odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant that he would run into the direction where nobody else was. He was fleeing into strange geography, like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yeah, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs exploded and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind, and body were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. It felt natural continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. I didn't struggle or grow tired chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, his shoulder, and his head even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten, like an herbivore running with all its might trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny creature. Harmed Satoko. Scar after scar to her body and mind. Deep wounds that might not ever go away for as long as she lived. Well, oh. My cold and calmed emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you could run. Fine. Run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs will feel about to burst, your head will hurt from the lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran, but was chased. His head bashed with the metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying. And pleas for forgiveness to someone. I didn't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now run. Run. Then fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you never should have showed up. If you never showed up, our lives would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you only saw at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, or target practice. Mion would surely make it into a competition, and we as a club would have a grand time. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance, and everyone would say how fun it was, and it would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny, warm times spent with friends. And that would have happened. But it didn't. And it was all smashed to pieces now. There was no doubt that would be what the world would be like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world. But I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so that this last week never happened. Tonight was the Tatarigoroshi festival. The holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Haha, it looked like the Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is at hand. The Higurashi have stopped their crying. Thus, it is the end. The end. The end. The end. End! You don't have to run away anymore. Die with those filthy brains of yours smashed everywhere. Ugh! Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. Wait a sec, we're carrying a metal bat. That's not good in a thunderstorm. It was so loud it shook the ground and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. Oh, never mind. No, that was just the lightning struck as we crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final, killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening he left as his knees gave out under him, I remained alert for a few moments, then thud, thud. He planted both knees in the ground, and then fell forwards, burying his head in the ground. That was me taking a sippy. I needed that. Well, let's, continue on. I've been holding back my ragged breathing. Now it all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light, and unable to maintain my balance, I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Now, my first thought is, don't stop. Do it a few more times because there's a chance he just got knocked out. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I guess burying him would also help with that. I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I guess that's an idea, but he also could grab you. I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again. Then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. And once again, I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. Or sorry, was that meant to be like a bow? Might have been a bow, right? What did it say there? His reaction, his body leaped like a bow or leaped like a bow? I don't know. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different. It started to spray a filthy dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I'd absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Satoko's uncle, nor pity towards Satoko herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour, begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's bat like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. But that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, that I'd ended Satogo's uncle for all eternity. All right, Keiichi. Calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply follow the man as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess as to how far he'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good, I could have seen the man's ugly hairline, could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now I realized how much crazy strength I mustered at that moment. I was your flight going, you know? I went over to the streetlight. I looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was.
ここは
Oh no. This was the one road connecting Hinamizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Satoko's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was just by looking at its license plate. And they couldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first. And, well, I wanted to get the shovel back from where I'd left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour and was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I'd left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he'd never existed, and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable. For a while, I let my desire have its way. After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually seemed like it had been lying there for a very long time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. Bikes are heavy. If you've ever actually lifted up a motorcycle, you'd be surprised. I didn't think it'd be so heavy. I was a little surprised. Once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll along. Still, push this thing all the way to the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. Could no longer ignore my exhaustion. It had warned me numerous times of how far away the swamp was. This motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it would basically be the same as a bicycle. Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? A plan suggested by my exhaustion. The anxiety at getting on a motorcycle for the first time withdrew. Turn the key and then you just kicked this pedal, right? Yeah. Vroom! It's on! And then I gripped the handlebars. First the right, then the left. Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched forward and did a wheelie like an angry horse. I lost it for a second, but it was a problem of how much torque to apply. You gotta really go careful with it. Let's try that again. This time, slowly, gently. This time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that wouldn't go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. My own once told me you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was clearly right. This was pretty easy. I needed to throw the metal bat into the swamp too. But I didn't know how to pack the bat onto the motorcycle. Without much other choice, I stuffed it into the back of my shirt. I was gonna say, yeah, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. I put the tip down the seat of my pants and hunched over. It wouldn't fall over. I got back on the bike and this time got it going without any difficulty. Carefully pressed the button labeled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. Probably really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any other way of seeing at this point and had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They were either all soaked through with the rain and hurrying on their way homes, or had their umbrellas and their heads low. Yesterday, I might have been wary of these passerbys, but right now it didn't seem to be much cause for concern. In fact, it probably would be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though, I started to think that idea is naive and brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed a steep hill. On a bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Man, motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onigifuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Well, it's a good thing I'm not good right now. Still, it wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned off by metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found you were playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out here sometimes to catch the giant crayfish in this place. They talked about before how they'd go to the candy shop, buy some pickled squid, then tie it to a fishing line, throw it, and all the crayfish would come running. Once I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp had waited for me. I slammed on the accelerator from a cliff-like stop, if I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff-like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall with it. If I drowned and disappeared, well, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of Tanagashi, Satoko's uncle's corpse was found in the thicket by the road leading to town, and Keiichi Maibara went missing. People would whisper that I'd been demoned away. The fifth year's curse would be a half-baked one. Got off the bike, twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go just when it seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a far fainter splash than I'd imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. Couldn't even make the motorbike out that I'd just thrown in there. It's pretty heavy after all. It would be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp. And it'd be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing away the man's motorbike down to the land of demons. But I have a tinge of regret about Satoshi's bat. I washed the bat with muddy water and the gore sticking to it came off easily. I had sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker from before, so it could continue to keep watch over Satoko.
サトシ、俺、多分お前のこと誤解してた。
Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I'm absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Satoko. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know. That was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that peace and lost it within days. So, I swear to you, I will live life to the fullest from now on. And live it enough for the both of us. I will live as though this week, this day, never happened. But I will never forget. the short time we shared together, for as long as I live. I didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who had protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved of its own accord, and the bat that I hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. Wait, one sec. Left my hands and flew through the air. The wrong direction, there we go. Oh, there it goes. It's gone now. That was the smallest increments of movements I could make with it. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. That surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment, I regretted having thrown it away, but I realized that might have been what Satoshi had wanted.
そうだよな。俺はまだ感傷に浸る余裕なんかないんだよな。
I would return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. Seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted, and I had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me with the only advice I needed to finish this up, with only the advice that I needed to finish this up soon, and then fell silent for eternity, and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. Damn. Kind of peak fiction. I love murder. I returned to the path I had ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. Stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy. But I needed to finish this by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good, I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Keiichi Maibara. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole in which I'd hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I had hidden it deep in the forest, not wanting to be seen, and now everything was black in the night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized just how big this annoyance really was.
おい、マジかよ。
The sweat the rain washed away before came back up to my skin. Deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach. The fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I'd been able to kill him right away like I'd planned, I don't know if I still could have buried him without a problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deeper into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction, and I'd actually get lost in there. Might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. Oh, right. At my house's storage room, there was another shovel there, the same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Maibara is written on the shovel, but it seemed like an unusual item from an import variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here, but in this darkness I couldn't do anything. I should give up and go back to the storage room, and there was an electric lantern in there. If I used that for light, I could look for it, but it was so extremely dark. Could I light the way with just the lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark night, I couldn't discard the possibility of it drawing eyes, and I doubted if I could find the shovel within the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I'd left the body there for a pretty long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing was to hide the body. The shovel being found wasn't a big deal, but a corpse? Well, if they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I'd go back to the storage room at home. Then I'd get the lantern, and now that it's gotten this dark, I might still need a light to dig a hole for the body, too. and I'd get the other shovel, and then I'd deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here and find the shovel, bring it back. I had to do at least that much, but I was so tired. Complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured, lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, none had been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. The night was young. Oh boy. Methinks this is a good stopping point. Again, I've been told, it's about an hour, right? So, it's about it's more than 2 hours. So if I stop here, I feel like this is a good moment for us to continue on next time as we try and deal with the body. I think this is the first time I've ever had a save that actually has a thumbnail, right? Boy, that was sure something. Okay, well, next time, guys, we have to try and deal with this dead body, which is the feeling between videos you're gonna have is like the perfect feeling for like the thought of, oh my god, I'm leaving a dead body as I go to get stuff from my house. Like it's thematically appropriate, right? That's why it's kind of beautiful. It's literally thematically right. So, thank you all for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time for some more Let's Read Higurashi as we do the second part of Chapter 10. See you guys then. Yo.